And
just before we proceed, you know, it will be very difficult not to agree with you. But then, don't you also think that the economy, as it is right now, also dictates and demands that people be prudent? I mean, without even saying you are looking at a General Buhari, you're looking at just what the economy dictates right now. Is it really possible or wise for any politician to say, oh, they're going to be hoarding money or not do things that they ought to do, considering how difficult things are getting for the populace?
Well, like I told you, when you do business politics, you are bothered about return on investment. First and foremost, you must have borrowed money, you must have sold your house and all of that. You have to recover those things. These are notorious facts. They may not be out there in the public domain, but everybody knows that they are working.
Because we're fighting corruption and we still have this kind of politics in our community, in our country.
Good.
How well can we fight corruption where you know
Beautiful.
it's tied to huge funds? The richer you are, the more successful you're likely to get at the polls.
Let me now work from answer to question, because your 30 minutes has a way of elapsing before I know what is in. If you ask me, and I do know that is the best way to go. It has nothing to do, well, you strengthen the EFCC, ICPC, Special Fraud Unit of the Police, Bureau of Public, what do you call it now? Code of Conduct Bureau and all of that. Yes, these are people who are fighting corruption. And it is at the end of the value chain, if I must use that word, because the people have already committed the offense and you are now grabbing them. Stop them from, first of all, being corrupt or committing that offense.
So prevention.
Good. So when you want to do that, do you know the agency to strengthen, and strengthen very seriously? National Orientation Agency. Nobody has talked about that. National Orientation Agency, in conjunction with Ministry of Education, will raise like an undergrowth a crop of Nigerians that will come and hate corruption. Because you see, these populace that we are talking about, that are making these demands from the politicians, are the people who are what I call society-induced corruption, who promote society-induced corruption. Because they are expecting you to give them what you do not have, what you are finding difficult to give them. And if you don't give them, of course, you will not be voted.
Or what they
you will not be voted in. I can tell you that free of
or
charge.
What they think you have illegally collected for
No,
yourself.
because there are some people who are contesting for the first time. They are not coming from government. They just have good ideas. And the moment, let's break this to figures. If, for instance, you are a governorship aspirant and you give a delegate 150,000 naira, I saw this happen. They came back and told me, so do you know how much that man gave us? 150,000. He's not serious. He's not contesting for anything. He's not contesting for anything. 150,000 naira for somebody who wants to be a governor. Meanwhile, the average cost is, the average package, let me put it that way, is about 500,000.
Mr. Eke, we definitely know that this model is not sustainable. This model of getting to office is not sustainable.
Good.
And it is at one point in time that it's going to break. Do you see this as an opportunity to break it?
Yes, you see, the opportunity has arrived. But you see, it is not going to be as sudden as people expected. That's the point the picture I'm trying to create. It's not a situation where General Buhari steps into office. The policeman on the road is no longer asking you for whatever. He's not going to tell you Happy Tuesday, because I just learned that, days can be used as Happy Tuesday, Happy Wednesday, and all of that from a regular policeman. Or the little cleaner that is at the airport who hoards the toilet roll that is meant for the public and probably gives it to you in bits and all of that, and is expecting something in return, who is no longer going to do that. These are people who, General Buhari is going to be in an office somewhere in Abuja, and the whole of, because see, corruption has permeated the whole system, the whole facets of society, that it will require orientation, a fresh orientation, to be able to have an undergrowth that will wake up one morning and, you will now find out that they no longer love corruption.
Would that undergrowth not be suffocated,
the general public we know now. You know when they say that man is doing very well. He has done very well for himself.
Would that undergrowth, as reorientated, would he not be suffocated out of business?
No, say that again. Would
the undergrowth not be suffocated?
No. That's our hope. That's our hope. Instead of catching those people who have already stolen, and the much you can do, because you see, there's this way people evaluate the fight on corruption. How many people have you been able to prosecute? How many people have you arrested? How many big people have you been able to send to jail? If you send 100, 1,000, 200,000 people, the people who have not been caught, the people who are under, are still doing the same thing. So it is an orientation issue.
Besides orientation, what about tinkering with we have the law, so to speak, where someone steals 20 billion and he's fined 3 million, and someone who steals a phone is sent to jail for about 7 years plus?
You're taking him to the legal parts now, which is the second part of this discussion.
You see those are things I held against the National Assembly. You know, one of those days I came in here and I was saying, that was the time somebody, the pension fund person was fined for 750,000. I think he was given a fine for 750,000. And it was like hell broke loose. Why would the judiciary do a thing like this and all of that? And I said the problem is not with the court. It's with the legislator. Because if for any reason they had done some kind of law reform, that law, at the point in time when it was made, that somebody would be fined 250,000, because that's the judge was laboring to put money together. Indeed, out of the three charges, he ended up, using the maximum penalty, which is 250,000, a maximum of 250,000, and put three of them together, and it only came to 750,000. Meanwhile, the man stole 29 billion, and it was like, what kind of law is this? Because that law was made at a point in time when, if you pay 250,000, you should pass out. Your life is gone.
Let's quickly tie this.
These have not been reviewed. You get the point?
Let's quickly tie this to the Constitution. Sorry to cut you there. Okay. Let's quickly tie this to constitutional review. You said the brouhaha concerning the Constitution amendment, which is between the executive and the legislature. For some Nigerians, they wonder why such section will be what will give them any cause for worry. Sections like this that you talked about, things like this we just talked about, that people should have looked into and say, let's amend this section and see how best it can help us as a people, haven't actually been looked into. The conflict between the legislative arm and the executive arm concerning the amendment of the Constitution, what do you think should be done now that the Supreme Court has actually spoken on this?
Your questions are of two folds. One is that first aspect, the first aspect of it is that why they couldn't review those laws that I talked about. There is no monetary profit to it. There is no pecuniary interest.
It goes back to corruption.
Good. I wanted to tie it before I now go to the main question. Because if there was, or they would have rushed to that area, what are we now talking about? 4 billion naira is what is used for, or at least about 4 billion naira is what is used for this constitutional review. I think the legislator is even stuck. They are a little ashamed. It's like, how can we waste this much money and we did not end up giving the Nigerians a constitutional amendment? That is why it is being pushed. Is that the only law to be pushed? The petroleum industry bill, which we are talking about, you see how they are even picking pieces of it. I've always insisted that Nigeria is not an oil-producing nation. It is an oil-producing location. And it is only the petroleum industry bill, if it becomes an act, that can make us enjoy the oil that we have. That thing has stayed there for 8 years. But we are rushing a constitutional review. Constitutional review that gives life pension to officers of the National Assembly, the constitutional review that gives them immunity, a constitutional review that makes them start a process of amending the constitution without recourse to any arm of government. And they are hiding under the cover of that there are three arms of government, separation of power. And I tell you, separation of power is an imaginary line, because it is not cast in stone. There's no ironclad that is stopping, one arm of government from interfering, what they will now call interfering with the game. I tell you this, the principle of mandamus, if for any reason somebody in the executive does not do his job, say for instance the Inspector General of Police has not done an arrest he's supposed to do, or the Attorney General has not prosecuted who is supposed to, all you need to do, rush to court. Secure a mandamus, an order of mandamus. The judiciary will force the executive to do that job. It's not interference, but that is how the interchange of responsibilities arose. In the same manner, a judge could be handling a case for maybe about 2 years or 3 years or thereabout in a criminal matter. All it takes is the Attorney General of the Federation walk into the place, my lord, we would like to withdraw this matter. The judge simply strikes out the matter. He will not say, I have had this case, I've taken testimonies from witnesses for 2 years and all of that. Are you going to teach me my job? That is executive, just simply taking the job away from the judiciary. So that is how it works. Even when the legislator says that they want to give you a bench warrant, we are summoning this minister and he doesn't want to come, they will take a police to be able to bring. The police belongs to the executive. So that is the interchange of whatever. So if I now answer that question directly. Section 4(8) of the Constitution makes it very clear. It is so clear. Short, if we can read it, we'll read it. It says that what the making of laws of the National Assembly, you use the word subject to the judiciary review. It is. Indeed, the words of, if you permit me.
Go ahead.
That section says, save as otherwise provided by this Constitution, the exercise of legislative powers by the National Assembly or by the House of Assembly shall be subject, the word is subject, to the jurisdiction of the courts of law and of judicial tribunals established by law. And now goes ahead to talk about how no law can oust the jurisdiction of the court. So the fact that the presidency went to court, indeed I disagreed with one of your guests quite recently who said that the Supreme Court can only assume jurisdiction when the bill has become an act. And I said, why do we want to force a fait accompli on the court? By the time that the National Assembly overrides the veto of the president, they would have purportedly made a constitution so amended.
Yeah, but
let me land on this. So amended. And meanwhile, the executive is not comfortable, does not recognize that constitution. Then we have a constitutional crisis.
Yeah,
so why don't you nip it in the bud?
But right now we've seen that the Senate has, stepped this down.
Beautiful.
And
that's in line with my argument.
They're going to the Supreme Court to challenge that order that has been given. That's the way they ought to go, right? Good.
That's the way they ought to go. They should go back to the court, to say their own version of the story. The president said we have not secured for fifth of the members and all of that, and to that extent we have contravened the constitution which we swore to protect and all of that. This is what we did. This is the process and all of that. So we cannot wait until they would have made an act
we'll take a short break. We'll come back and see how that can be resolved. That's after now. Stay with us.